think it's about time to get started again. Good morning, good morning. Good morning, everyone. As it was mentioned earlier, yes, I am the council member for District 3. Glad to be part of this creative initiative. Before I begin, and with my part as a monitor for question and answer, I'm glad and excited to have on my right here Mr. Greg Gautreaux and Ben Berthelot. Again, many years ago when I started my career working in banking institution, I ran across a lot of people from different parts of the United States as well as different parts of the country. And one thing drew me to this fascinating area of Lafayette, which I grew up. I've been here 60 years, I'm 60 years old. But what drew me to that is with the people, I'd ask them questions. I'd ask them, how long have you been in Lafayette? What made you become part of our culture in Lafayette? And one thing these people would tell me, I've been in Lafayette for so many years, and everyone I found out had been in Lafayette more than 1 year, they never left. It's like they forgot to leave. They enjoy Lafayette so much. And I started thinking about it. I started saying, what makes Lafayette so great? What is so great about it? I did a little bit of traveling. The first I would go was probably to Texas, Houston, Beaumont, that's about it. Then I started traveling, going a little further. And I asked people, do you know anything about Louisiana? A little bit. I heard of it. Do you know anything about Lafayette? No. But I know about New Orleans. Now I'm talking about in the late 70s or 80s. But as time went around the middle 80s, I'd ask people again, do you know anything about Lafayette? Oh yeah, I know a little bit. Lafayette started getting on the map. Then in 2000, maybe a little bit before 2000, oh, I know Lafayette. I know about the Mardi Gras. I know about Festival International. I know a lot of things about Lafayette. So what I'm saying is that Lafayette plays a big part in the United States and in the country. We're known for our uniqueness, our food, our culture, our different languages. That's what we're known for. And we're also known for a lot of things that we're doing as far as the tourism. And again, Mr. Ben Berthelot is here. He's going to explain it to us and tell us a little more than he said earlier about how important it is to bring tourists to Lafayette. But also, I like to see the people stay here because remember, these are the people that are the driving force to welcome the tourists here. And they're also paying tax dollars and they're also paying property tax. So we can get them to stay here. To me, I feel that's just as good because that way they have relatives that live out of town that will come and visit us. So there goes the tax dollars again. So it is a win-win situation for us. They're paying sales tax dollars when they buy goods, and they're also paying tax dollars. And when someone comes and visit, we're making money again. And then Mr. Gautreaux, he's doing a fantastic job as far as economic development. I represent District 3. Whenever I need some type of development that's going on in Lafayette on the north side, this is the first person I talk to after I talk to the Mayor President Robideau. I talk to him first, then I talk to Mr. Greg. Again, Greg, I'm going to start with you by asking you a question before I leave it out to the audience and out there. How do you estimate the credit initiative to be an economic force in Lafayette Parish and throughout the Acadiana region?
Well, as I said before, the CREATE initiative represents to economic development. It represents jobs, it represents economic impact, it represents what we can deliver to the world. You know, I'm even though I'm not as old as the other Greg Gautreaux, this Greg Gautreaux Sr., I remember being in places like Japan and Brazil and Europe, and people say, you know anything about Louisiana? You ever been to Louisiana? No. You ever been to New Orleans? Yeah, I've been to New Orleans. And so, you know, it was really, New Orleans was the identity. And that's okay. because we can build on that. We can be, when we need to, little sister or brother. But I'll tell you, there might be, I think there are like 20-something versions of the name Lafayette in the United States, because General Lafayette was a significant hero. But if you're in the energy business, anywhere in the world, and you say Lafayette, people know where you're talking about. If you're in the food business, anywhere in the world, and you say Lafayette, they know where you're talking about. And if you're in the computer business, they know you're talking about UL at Lafayette, Louisiana. So we've got a worldwide identity on certain things, and food is one of those things. Obviously, Paul Prudhomme and other people, made our cuisine world famous, and they go to New Orleans to enjoy it. And so that's when I say we've got to keep growing and keep working hard, because we've got to establish our identity. Ben's going to talk about all of the things that they do to bring people here, and truthfully, we get a tremendous amount of people. Y'all do a great job, and it's amazing, like I said, compared to New Orleans, the numbers that we get, because those guys are the worldwide known entity. But what we talk about when we talk about this issue, beyond the economic impact, is building, and I've heard it a few times here today, a sustainable community. I've got a wonderful team here today. Nikki Bourgeois and Abby Gides and Rainey Leger and Stacy Zawacki, who I've already talked about. And Abby Gides runs our sustainable community effort. Now, we started this effort and we said, okay, Abby, invent a sustainable community effort. And she spent about a year now studying what we're going to learn these 2 days and a lot of additional things. Competitive reference, comparative reference is important in the economic development world, as we talked about when we talk about marketing differentiators, etc. So I think over the next couple of days, we're going to learn about the things we do great as a community. And then I think the CREATE initiative, Kate and the team are going to help us, and hopefully with some additional funding, we're going to help us get better at what we do, and fill in the gaps of what's missing. And that gold collar worker that I referred to earlier, the only way we're going to get them, keep them beyond the first year 40 pounds is to build that sustainable community, to have those venues available every night. Because the employee of tomorrow, as I said, can live anywhere, really today, can live anywhere. A lot of them don't want to drive. Many of them just have a place to sleep, and that's home. And they entertain in huge numbers. And that is a significant, now there's still traditional neighborhoods, and we love it, and what's great about this community is there's always going to be room for that. It's always going to be the backyard where we have the crawfish boil. But those folks that want this other lifestyle, they're going to love being our neighbor, because they're going to enjoy all of those things that we're building as a sustainable community, whether it's Monkus Park or downtown or University Avenue redevelopment or whatever. And the bottom line is, then they're going to come to our backyard for the crawfish boil. So building a sustainable community is about the things we do great, making them better, and filling the gaps. Last thing I'm going to say, people don't understand this enough, and you all have to be the choir in big numbers, loud and proud. Don't let the talking heads shout you down. A community grows or dies. Listen to me. A community grows or dies. There's no stagnation that is successful ever in an economy. And so fight to grow this CREATE economy. Don't let anybody tell you it's not as important as anything else.
Well said. I just want to start painting a picture. Kate asked me to talk a little bit about where we are as a visitor destination right now. So just a couple of numbers I'll give you. 2014 visitor profile study said that we had about 2.8 million visitors to Lafayette Parish in 2014. Now, unfortunately, all 2.8 million of those didn't stay in our hotels and benefit places like Ben's Place and others, but because we're such a hospitable people, you opened up your houses to some of those. But 2.8 million folks. That same study said that Lafayette Parish had the highest satisfaction rate of any place in Louisiana in terms of the visitor experience. 89% satisfaction rate. That was very, very interesting, I think very, very important. Now, let's compare that to New Orleans. New Orleans has 10 million visitors a year, and New Orleans has a $35 million plus budget to drive tourism. Now, I didn't mention that we have about a $3.4 million budget. I did say that of that 3.4, we spent about 2 on direct marketing efforts. So, naturally, anybody in my position, my goal is to get to 10 million visitors. Because if we get to 10 million visitors, that's going to be an incredible impact on our community. That's my job. But for me to grow from 2.8 to 10 over the next 30 years, we can maybe do that. But I certainly cannot do it by myself. There's things that we cannot make happen. We're a marketing organization. Our job is to tell the story, get people to come visit. What I can't affect necessarily is our place. And so, Lee, I want to, if we can have just a quick conversation off the record, because I want to say some things that I'm not able to say generally, because every time I talk about Lafayette, I have to talk about everything positive, because I'm trying to get people to hear. But I want to say, I would put our food, music, and our culture up against anybody in the world. What I would not put up against anybody in the world is our place. And you may have your own definition of what place means, but this is how I see it. I want you to think about a place, non-beach, no mountains, that you travel to, or that you know that people travel to. And I want you to think of what that place looks like. And you're going to come to whatever conclusion you're going to come to. But what I think about, and when I ask people this question, they talk about places like Charleston. They talk about places like New Orleans. They talk about places like San Antonio. And there are certainly things that those communities have that we don't. And I'll start with a vibrant downtown. A walkable downtown is the first place that people go, a visitor goes in any city that you probably go to, you start downtown. So I can't affect that by myself. I need somebody strategically focused on that at City Hall every day. And if all of a sudden you give me the place, you give me Charleston's place, you give me New Orleans' place and the walkability and all those things that they have that we don't, then all of a sudden getting to $10 million becomes a lot easier. Because what all those places don't have, and New Orleans could argue that they have some of it, but they don't have the culture that we have. And so that's a big missing piece for us. And so I see tourism, although we're a T and we're a big part of Create, I see tourism as the beneficiary of Create. And I see Create as the product development driver for our community. The focus of ensuring that our downtown becomes a place, working closely with DDA. What are our needs, our artists' needs? We talked about performance space earlier. But one more example, and this is still off the record, Lee. So, Sunday through Wednesday, okay? I want you to think of Lafayette Parish Sunday through Wednesday, and then I want you to think of Lafayette Parish Wednesday through Saturday. And that's a totally different dynamic. Somebody goes downtown on a Monday, there's not a whole lot happening. And I often cringe as I see our visitors walking downtown on Monday with their cameras and not much to do, okay? Because things are closed, there's just not the dynamic atmosphere that compare that to a Friday night downtown live, right? So if we can create, Mark Falco's, we sell Livable Saloon all the time, but they're not open on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, right? So if I host a journalist, we have to be very strategic on when we bring them in, and we host a lot of journalists throughout the year. So it's creating that programming on Sunday through Wednesday, and who's going to do that? I don't have, that's not really my role, although we get involved in those kind of discussions. Greg and I talk all the time, we work together. Fortunately for our community, over the last 30 years, LEDA and LCVC have really gotten out of their boundaries, per se, to invest in a lot of important things. But every time we do that, that's taking away marketing money that we have to promote our area. And we do it because it's the right thing to do, but we don't focus on that every day. And that's where Create comes in.
Okay, questions. I'll walk around the room. If anyone have any questions, I'll be glad to just, let's have some questions. I mean, really, anyone have a question? Please tell us your name and what do you do.
Teresa Elverson with the library. And then I just wanted to know, how are those numbers gathered for the number of people that come into this area? I know there's a scientific way to do it.
Very hard, and it's the reason why after every festival, people call our office and they say, how many people do we have in town? And my answer is, I have no idea, because there's no way to do it without doing an intense, expensive economic impact study. And so those studies aren't done every day, they're not done every year, but they're done by the state of Louisiana in general, although we have over the years done some locally for festivals and such. But it's a survey, very intense, like I said, not something that I can just say after Festival Cayenne, we had 300,000 people here. Our Festival International, we had 400,000. So it's like Greg probably can get more into details of how that happens, but it requires a significant investment in an economic impact study.
Yeah, I'd like to supplement that a little bit. I'm holding in my hand a 15-page economic impact analysis called Lafayette's Cultural Economy Executive Summary. And this is what Ben would refer to as a very in-depth study. It was done by UL, economics professors at UL, including the department head, and with a lot of research and input from our staff. I think Rainey led that effort. Everything we talk about, we're going to give you, there are pages and pages and pages of documentation. One time a councilman asked me to do a study on an area of the community, and we do those pretty diligently and regularly, but this one probably had about that much research behind it. And I looked at the councilman and I said, listen, you can read all this, you can read the 40-page report, but the answer to the question is, in 8 square miles within the corners of Interstate 10 and 49, there are 44% of folks 25 years or older who do not have a high school diploma. That's your issue in that district. So the answer to the question is always complex. The answer to the question is always based on significant research, and 3 out of 4 hours spent on anything any economic developer does is research. And I'm very proud of the fact that we have the resources that we do to be able to put numbers that are real in front of them.
Just for you guys to know that there's a lot more you can learn about Create Initiative on the website. It's createlafayette.la. I'm sorry, createlafayette.la.gov. createlafayette.la.gov. Oh, hold on a second. Let me let this young lady see it. Oh, I can't really have my glasses.
It's createlafayette.la.
Well, I said it right the first time.
when he was, so the study that Greg is referring to, you can read it in its entirety on the website.
Thank you. I have a question back here. Hold on a second. I see it right the first time. Amen. Glad. Is your name, please, sir?
My name is John Francois. I live here in Lafayette. I was wondering if you have any idea how many companies choose not to locate in this area because they've heard that the education system is not good. Do you have any information on that or statistics?
No, I don't, and it's all anecdotal, and the reason for that is simply you don't know about opportunities lost generally, and when people don't choose you, they don't generally respond. I got asked a question last night during a break in the football jamboree by one of my fellow Kiwanians, and she said, what's your success rate on people that you've worked with? And I said, in the last 5 years, we've landed 100% of the people that have been here. It's just like an old Sam Cooke song. If we can meet them, we can get them. And she said, what's your success rate overall? I said, probably 1 in 1,000. And the answer, because the answer is, you do all this marketing, you go to the trade shows, you do the mail outs, you visit with companies and people ad nauseum. The state of Louisiana sends out proposal after proposal after proposal, and they go out to all the realtors, et cetera, you know, about place first and then everything else. You don't know who's not considering you or why they eliminated you. Every once in a while, if you get close and they decide not to come, you can ask them. I will tell you anecdotally that education in Louisiana is a huge problem. Now, education in the United States is buoyed by higher education. We're not known for being a great country when it comes to elementary and secondary education. The difference between our economy and the rest of the world's economy over the last 30 years is because of higher education and immigration. Okay? So it's an interesting phenomenon that we've got the place where everybody in the world wants to live and the place where everybody in the world who is extremely successful in their country goes for higher education, but yet we don't deliver the same level of opportunity in elementary and secondary education to mine the talent of more people. So I'm sorry that I can't answer the question directly. It's impossible to get, but there is just absolutely no doubt in my mind that education or lack of a great elementary and secondary education system is the #1 inhibitor for economic development in this state. And it has been for a long time. And you can translate that to Lafayette if you say we're a very wealthy parish. We're in the top 15% in per capita income in the United States in counties. You know, top 15%. And what are we ranked in the state? Which the state's ranked 48th or 50th, depending on what ranking you look at in elementary and secondary education, and we're 17th or 20th in that state. So, you know, it doesn't take a lot to understand that you can't even get people, according to some oil execs, to move from Houston anymore because their grandkids are in a good school system now, and they don't want to leave. And so this is a generational issue, and it was in place. It's been in place all of my life, and I pray that somebody fixes it, because we do have an unbelievable natural resource, and we do have people that are extremely creative and highly productive and very inventive, and the education holds us back.
I have another question right here.
Daniel Kettinger from BBR Creative. I was wondering if you guys could talk about the handoff from tourism to economic development. Because I think in a lot of ways, we look at them as separately and say, well, one's about getting people to come visit, and one's about people coming and set up businesses or come in to expand. So how do you guys kind of help tee one of the other up? And how do you kind of hand off from those kinds of things?
That's a great question. I'm going to start because Greg's going to be the key on this. But first I want to say, as I go across the country, I can't tell you how proud I am that we have such a great relationship, tourism and economic development. It doesn't happen in other parts of the community. And I talk to Greg all the time. We work together on a lot of different projects. I'll give you one example, and I know Greg has many more. One of our biggest priorities as an organization is a full-service hotel at the Cajun Dome Convention Center and the doubling of the Cajun Dome Convention Center. It's a game changer for our industry on our convention side of our business. We miss out on a lot of conventions because we don't have that infrastructure. And so it's also an economic development initiative. And Greg's organization and our organization partnered 7 years ago for the first economic feasibility study on this project. It's a great example of a type of partnership. So 7 years go by, nothing's really happened. UL comes back and they're looking and they want to update the study. Well, Greg, I just told you that's our number one priority and it's going to benefit us, but Greg and economic development, they funded the second study by themselves. And so we work very closely on that, and sometimes there is, some overlap, but I'll just stop with that.
Well, the CREATE initiative is a crossroads between art and business, right? We talk about it, we take it for granted in this room, and I think Joel said earlier, a lot of people think of it as what? It's the fluff stuff, it's the fun stuff, it's just, so a lot of people just don't realize how much we cooperate and how much we work together. First of all, the traits of, in my opinion, a great community is that you don't duplicate things. And so we look at the community, the parish as a whole. We look at the strategic plan. We look at downtown. We look at the south side, the north side, and the east side, and the west side, and the river, and everything in between. And we take stock of who our allies are. We study what they do, whether it's Upper Lafayette or whatever group that we're working with. And we make sure we don't duplicate, we try to fill in the gaps, and we try to make sure that we complement what we do. So we strategically and we purposely seek out leaders who want to share the work. Ben is one of those leaders. Wants to share the work. We don't all need the credit. We don't all need to cut the ribbon, but we, just like, remember that last thing that we didn't get invited to, that yet, okay. But we need to share. And so it's really cool. And by the way, there's a little challenge for everybody. And say, I feel the same way. You go on Sunday or Monday night and there's nothing going on, and you see a tourist, walk up to them and say, I'm a Cajun. Las palapatat, Chad. What can I help you do? What can we do? Where can we go have some fun? And after, if they don't run, tell them what's going on wherever they can find it. It's amazing. It's like if people come in town and say, where's the taxi service? And I'm like, let's call Uber. So, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. That's way off.
Comment right here.
Hi, I'm Leon Steele, and I just have a comment, probably close to wrapping up there. Someone who's not from here, but visited here a lot since moving to Louisiana many, many years ago, I just want to say that finally I am here and have invested here. So I'm really happy with that. But what I want to draw people's attention to is the fact that all of these changes, you're talking about downtown being closed on Mondays and that sort of thing. Having been here many times in the past, we have to remember what downtown was like not that many years ago. So everybody's made a lot of effort to turn that around, and it's been pretty successful. I mean, that is basically the city park of Lafayette, if you think about all the people who were there for the festivals and whatnot. And we've reached a point now, because of everyone's interest in doing all of this, where we've reached the tipping point with this CREATE initiative. And there's a lot of opportunity here for us to continue to roll that ball forward. So congratulations to everybody who's been involved in the past.
You're absolutely right. I think that's a great point, and nothing that we say do I want to diminish from what has taken place. It's been some fabulous things that I've served on the downtown board over the years, etc. And the difference is, and Jeff Dyer in downtown development goes to work every day on making downtown a better place. But much of what, and they do a fabulous job, much of what they need to be successful, they cannot do. That requires investment by our community and investment by LCG and infrastructure. And so through CREATE, that is going to be a fantastic ally for downtown, I believe. And particularly with Kate now, that person, what a great connection from coming from downtown and now working in City Hall to move us, to take the second big step forward that we took in the 80s through streetscape and all the great things that have happened. But I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's an excellent point. And I think CREATE is about how do we get even better than we already are, and how do we take that next step.
So, Mr. Seal, you may not be from here. You said Seal, right? You got a famous Eunice name. You know that, I guess, right? And so I think that you're absolutely, well, I know you're absolutely right. Once again, leave here and find out how great people think Lafayette is. And just understand that all we're trying to do is make it better. And sometimes we do, fall into the negativity because, when you're trying to make things better, you start with, well, it's great, but we need to do this. But you got to end with, it's great. So thanks for pointing that out.
Got a few more questions right here.
My name is Pete Levy Brown. I'm a oil and gas layman, right-of-way agent, and been able to travel the continent and see some of the things that we have done. Just as Mr. Seal just mentioned, we've done a great job, and every time I go, just to let you know that when I go out, I'm an ambassador of Lafayette. I always tell them about the exact things you guys are up there talking about, and it's been such great things because I've been bootlegging steamed syrup, boudin, you name it, Cajun power sauces, all these types of things to bring to other people. And once they get just a smidgen of that, and then we have that open door policy, as you say you get people to visit, but we're so kind to open up our doors. Just from me telling them about our place makes them want to come, but half the time we don't see them come. So with that, you bring a lot of ideas from what I'm sure everybody who does do the traveling, they like to see some of the ideas of other places come here, and like you said, not to diminish what we have already done, because I've been here since the age of 5. So this is something I've also seen as well. But there was one thing I was kind of curious, outside of downtown and creating other areas. Have you ever thought about, I don't know if we can, I don't know if there's some type of engineering issue, but featuring the river? Most places have river walks, things of that nature. I know we have a mosquito problem, but to keep people out there and maybe trying to do something where you talk about that Sunday through Wednesday, so forth and so on. So I don't know if you could elaborate on that.
Absolutely, great point. And I'll tell you what we currently do. We currently are placing a very big importance on the outdoor experience. It's ecotourism is a big buzzword, and wow, do we have a lot. Birding, we have kayaking, canoeing. So we're promoting all of those things to visitors. They're doing things not only on the Vermilion, but more so at places like Lake Martin and in the Atchafalaya Swamp. They have been for years, but it's even more now. But you bring up a great point, and so that's what we're doing from a marketing standpoint. But I'm not a development organization. I can't drive the discussion of we need more. We need to stop turning our back on our river, and we need more boardwalks and public access. And fortunately, some of that has happened from the public entities that are able to do that. BBD has invested a significant amount of money over the last several years in kayak launches at the nature station, by Camellia Boulevard, and many other places. But this is a great discussion point of the importance of a create type initiative, because we all have our roles, but the city plays a big role in that as well, in driving those discussions, and as does Greg.
We've really not utilized the river the way it should be utilized. I'm encouraged and excited about a few things, including the fact that tourism is so ecology-based now, so nature-based. And so I think that it's going to get better. We have invested in the river. There's been investment. You're in part of that investment in the river, but you know how much of what we're doing here is at the river. In the old days, frankly, everybody got kind of spoiled, and they would say, man, it's just too hot to sit out by the river. And then a few people went to San Antonio and said, well, it's hot here, but we're doing it. And it's just a nature of the fact that we, once again, haven't always taken advantage of what we have. I think that is going to get better and better. There's been discussion, and I'm afraid I don't remember who said it, but just in the last couple of days in my office, some people want to turn significant attention to the river. We have dreamed about a string of pearls. You've heard of the park network in Boston area. What is it, the Emerald Necklace or something like that? So EB and I are talking about the Louisiana equivalent of string of pearls. And if you think about our parks, many of our parks, including Monkus Park, are either on the river or a stone's throw from the river. And so it's just a matter of, once again, organizing it. But it takes money, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but Parks and Recreation would be the logical place, right, to do all these canoe opportunities and do a lot of on-river recreation opportunities, connecting the parks and having landings and etc. And they are simply underfunded by anybody's standard. But just to give you the next door example, Baton Rouge, East Baton Rouge Parish has twice the population of Lafayette Parish and 4 times the park funding. So think about it. They got like $70 million in millage or something before you even start raising your own money for park opportunities.
Wow, that's great. Next question.
Deborah Young, and I've been transplanted here to Lafayette for 25 years. And in my travels, people always ask me, why do you still stay there? Well, I'm still here, and I have my reasons. But the question I'd like to ask is, especially to Ben, can you give us more input on how Create is used as a product developer in our economy, and how you plan to execute that vision?
Yes, I'm just review the examples I've used. So Create as a driver for placemaking in places like downtown. Create as a driver for filling the gaps that we have in programming. You know, what can we do as a community when I have a visitor here on Monday night, that we make sure that in a place, the birthplace of Cajun and Zydeco music, that there's more than just Randalls and Préjeans that they can experience that. I'll give you a couple other examples. We talk all the time about our artists as and our musicians as our greatest export. For me, that's a very good thing because they're our greatest ambassadors. Every time they go play, they're exposing our music to the rest of the world. But for the last 10 years, people come and talk to me about that and say, what can we do as a community to keep so that our artists have opportunities here, so they don't have to travel so much to make a living. Well, who's going to focus on that? That's product development, and that creates role in my mind. It's not necessarily my role. It's not Greg's role. It's potentially a role that a gap that Create can fill. And I'll give you one last example. In the last 5 years, I must have been in 50 meetings where somebody has said, we need a community calendar for our community. And I just cringe every time because it's been tried and it wasn't successful. And part of that is because the artist community themselves doesn't upload the information that we need. And so that's another discussion as a community. We have a fabulous community-wide calendar, but Create can help, again, fill that void. When somebody is working with all those arts and culture organizations on a daily basis, driving that discussion. And I just want to say one last thing. 5-6 years ago, when I was Director of Community Development, we started hosting a meeting. We simply called it an Arts and Cultural Collaboration Meeting. And we had probably 30 people show up, 30 to 40 people in the arts and cultural community. And you would have swore that was the best thing that's ever happened. Just having all of them in the room at the same time. They couldn't get over the opportunity that we were presenting them to be in the same room together and talk. And over the years, that kind of fell apart. I moved on to my current position and other things happened. But that just goes to show you I think there's the burning desire from our cultural community to really have that seat at the table every day in our community, and Create is going to give them that opportunity.
So, I think we're out of time, so I want to add to that and kind of wrap my thoughts on this. And first of all, I want to say how much I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I don't know why other communities are not unified in their efforts as we are from at least a governmental standpoint, but I'm grateful to be invited to the table when we have these kinds of discussions, because maybe the head of Great New Orleans isn't invited to the table. I don't know, but we always are, and I appreciate it. I don't want to take that for granted. The other thing I want to say is, while Create is a thought process and perhaps an invention of elected officials and government, etc., the role of economic development, tourist development, in every government entity is to enhance the opportunity for you to make money, for business to make money. People get confused. Business came first. Government was businesses and people coming together to take care of certain basic services. And then anything you do beyond that, from an economic development, business development standpoint, is really getting into how can we help our businesses grow in order for our community to grow. So it's really gratifying that, number one, we're invited to the table, and number two, there are more people in the room that are private, own venues, and are artists and promoters and developers, etc., and are, as I say, private, is more gratifying, because government can only do so much. Men can only do so much. We can only do so much. You guys, you ladies, are going to create this initiative, right? Kathy and her group are behind the business side of this and raising money to help amplify what government can do times 1,000. And so what we are talking about here, make no mistake, is an initiative to focus on people and business making money. And then, if everybody makes money, I got it in here, in the speech somewhere, apparently if you make a lot of money, you're happier. That's what Gallup poll said a few years ago. Well, I think that. So bottom line is, we got to make more money in the arts community, and Create, hopefully, will help us get there. But you guys are going to do it.
So let's go out and make some money, huh?
Well, thank you guys for being here. We really got a lot out of it. I'm sorry I didn't get to everyone's question, but there's a survey you can fill out online, createlafayette.la. So don't forget that. There's a survey to go out there and fill it out. We'll break it for now. Please return back at about 10:15 or